If you're looking to build a community, maybe to monetize your knowledge or to build a personal brand or to create some new business, I'm going to share with you 10 things that I learned from running my own community for the last 12 months. Now, for starters, there's a lot of places that you can start a community. What I did is I spent probably a few weeks researching all the various tools and platforms out there. I looked at things like Slack and Go High Level, Telegram, Discord, SKOOL. I looked at a wide range of social media platforms like Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse. If it's out there, I took a deep look at it. What I ended up with was a platform called SKOOL. I've been a longtime fan of Alex Hormozi and Sam Ovens. They partnered together to build this new platform, and I wanted to test it out, see what all the bells and whistles and the hype was about, quite frankly. And I'm really glad I picked that platform. I'll put a link down below with my affiliate link. If you want to use it, please sign up. So for starters, the very first thing that I did was research. I went down all the other rabbit holes of these other communities. I joined communities. I saw how their onboarding process was. I saw what their messaging was like, their video sales letters. I clicked on ads for communities. I really just spent a few weeks doing market research. I looked at free communities, paid communities. Now, I've joined other communities in the past. I went back to see what my experience had been there, what my expectations were. I really just did research. So the first thing I would recommend is before you start a community, do some research, see what's out there for your space and your niche, and even outside of your niche. Take the good and leave the bad, but you want to make sure you're well researched before you jump in. The second thing that I learned, and it really is the crux of running a very well high performing community that is highly engaging and has people coming back, is making sure you know exactly what your community is, what you plan to do inside of it, what results you intend to get, and ultimately who it's for. You have to know the answer to those questions. What are we going to do here? What are we trying to achieve? And who else is going to be inside this community? Now, I'll give you an example. You can have a very broad audience, let's say an attorney community, or you can have a very niche, which is attorneys that specialize just in, let's say, employee law. The more niche you go, the more I understand what types of challenges, problems, issues we're going to be talking inside of that community. If it's simply too broad, I don't really know what I'm there for and what I'm going to get out of it. Again, you can run a broad entrepreneur community, or you can have a very specific community for entrepreneurs that run service-based businesses, or go deeper, entrepreneurs that run service-based businesses inside of finance and accounting. You could go even deeper and say finance, accounting, bookkeeping, a community just for bookkeepers. You get my point. It has to be very, very specific. Know your audience very well and clearly communicate to them what problems you intend to solve. Now, some of these problems may be very specific, like we are going to teach you how to be a better marketer. Some of them can be a little more abstract or existential and say, we're going to be a safe space for you to bring your problems, your issues, and we're just going to talk through things on a weekly basis. It's really up to you to determine what value you're going to offer to your community, but you got to make sure you're being very clear and specific before you launch. Otherwise, people simply won't know why they're there and what they're supposed to do. Which leads me to my third point. People need to know what to do, and you have to be very, very clear on the directions. From the onboarding process to the sign-up process, to introducing themselves to the community, to taking certain actions. Maybe you want to watch a video or fill out a worksheet, take a course, you name it. You have to have it all well-defined and pre-planned so that when your new community member joins, they have a very clear roadmap of what to do. You want to make sure that they feel very well taken care of, that they feel there's a lot of structure, infrastructure for what they just joined. Because really you want them focused on making progress. You do not want them confused. The more confused they are, the faster they'll leave you. And also just bear in mind that most people gloss over instructions, and sometimes we need to be told as humans multiple times to do something. So don't feel like you're bombarding them. Sometimes they may simply need 3 or 4 reminders before it actually clicks. So if you feel discouraged that you already told your community member once what to do, but they're not doing it, you might need to tell them 3 or 4 times. Just get in their face and remember it's for their benefit. It's not to be annoying. They joined your community. They need to get some benefit and value out of it. And you need them to do certain things in order for them to get that benefit. So just be the squeaky wheel and you will get your community members to follow along. A very important thing to note is that there will be trolls from time to time in your community. So you are the community master. It's your job to beware of who you let in. If you run a free community, it's easy to let anybody in. You could just hit accept, accept, accept. And the next thing you know is people are getting spammed in the community. So that's not cool. I have a very clear expectation in the community. It basically says if you do these things, you're going to get kicked out. No questions asked. I would recommend that you have some guidelines posted somewhere, or maybe even in the onboarding, just so people know what the expectation is and how to be a good member or good neighbor once they get inside. Protect your community at all costs. So I want to talk about engagement next. Now beware, a small percentage of your total community members is going to be highly engaged. If you had 100 members, maybe 10, 15, 20% of them are going to be super engaged. They're going to show up every day. They're going to do the homework. They're going to connect with one another. They're going to be proactive. And then the other 80% or so may be very reactive, slow to respond. And some of them, quite frankly, are just there for who knows why they signed up. They're most likely never going to do the work. And you have to learn very early on who these people are going to be and how to engage with certain people. Now, some of those people that aren't being engaged, it's because maybe the communication is off. Maybe you're not giving them enough to do. Maybe you're not calling on them enough or getting in their face enough or encouraging them enough. You really have to find opportunities to get in front of your audience. Create more opportunities for calls, have one-to-ones scheduled, do anything you can, but your job is to increase the engagement, because the more engaged the community is, the better for all the community members. Let's say you have a community of 100 members and only, let's say, 10 of them are engaged. That's not really fair to them that the other 90% are completely checked out. Now, to that end, you will want to track progress. Always track the progress of people inside their community. If you have a community where the whole focus is to teach people how to launch podcasts, celebrate the wins. Every time someone posts a new episode or launches a new podcast series or brings on a big guest or even just makes one small step towards their dream, highlight it. Make it notable inside the community. Pump people up. Encourage them. Get people to like the post and share the post and go visit and comment. This is the whole focus of a community, is that people are there together, encouraging one another, pulling together for the progress of everybody. It's still your job as a community leader to encourage the conversation, to get the most out of everybody inside of the community. That is your job, to ensure that there is engagement and to not let people just drift off into the distance. And yes, from time to time, you're going to need to hold people accountable. That's fine. That's the whole reason of community. That's why people join in the first place, so they can make progress. And sometimes progress, think of it as a coach in sports. You need someone to get in your face and make you run the drills. That's why we're here, to see people have forward momentum, and it's fine if you hold them accountable. Now, I will say something that can go a very long way when new people join your community. Give them the show. When someone comes in, put them front and center, highlight them, let them introduce themselves, tell people what they're working on, how others can connect with them, follow them on social media, do something to feature this new member, really encourage them, because when first timers come in, they're looking for what this experience is. And if they don't really like the experience, they get spooked a little bit and then they'll just disappear and never come back. So you don't want that to happen. You want to make sure that when someone new comes in, that they get the full experience very early on. Maybe have an onboarding call with them or give them something to accomplish or do, or a box to check. Give them some action to take, and this starts to tie them a little closer to making progress, and it makes them more engaged. And again, that's the whole point. Now, taking a step back of who this community is, you want to be really clear on who's allowed to come in. You're organizing this chessboard of certain people and certain players, a certain caliber of individual. Now, let's say, for example, you're in a community, but your business has to be doing $10 million plus in revenue, and everybody in your community, let's say you have 20, 30 people and they're all doing those levels. If you have someone coming in that's doing $500,000 in revenue, they're going to be out of water. They're going to be out of sorts. They're really not going to know how to connect with the rest of the community because they just don't have that level of success. So you really got to make sure that you're kind of level set. You know who this community is for. Check your age, demographics, industry, stage of business, life stages. Really get deep into the psychographics and the demographic profile for your community, so you know how to bring people in together so they can gel. They can share experiences, they can share knowledge, they can share their common problems. If it's too disparate, people are simply not going to know how to communicate with one another, and that's not going to help gelling the community. Now, this leads to an 80-20 rule, more or less, of being a community leader. In the very, very beginning, about 80, maybe even 90% of the reason people are coming to this community is for you. It's because you have a certain level of expertise, certain level of leadership, you're successful in some arena, you have some proven expertise or some reason why people would want to join you and follow you. That's going to be a large reason of why people show up to your community. But after time, your community is going to start to work together, gel together, create friendships, create partnerships, and over time, they're going to come to that community for each other, to encourage one another. And if you're doing your job right, that 80-20 will start to flip. If you think about a top-down infrastructure where you sit at the top and then everyone is down below and everyone comes just for your value, that's fine. That's how it looks in the very beginning. But if you think about connected dots, over time, you want all these dots connecting, and that's the value of a community. It starts to take this away from a top-down leadership infrastructure more to a connected dot community infrastructure. That is ultimately the goal of a community, is you get to meet people. It's like going to college. You make lifelong college friends. You don't go to school just for the professor. So you want to think about how that shifts and shapes over time as a community leader. Now, as a community leader, the most important thing you can do is lead by example. So you have to show your members how to do the thing, how you got to where you're at. Lead the way. You're the guide. Hold them accountable. Give them things to do. You can't just create the community then disappear. Now, part of this leadership aspect is maintaining your energy. There will be highs and lows. There will be times when you show up to calls and very few people are there. Or maybe you have a lot of people, but the engagement is very low. Maybe the energy is low. You have to get very good at managing your emotional state, because every single time that you show up to the call, you have to be a pro. You have to be the absolute 110% expert professional, the reason people signed up, and you can't really let them see you sweat. You don't really want to show up when you're in a bad mood or you're low energy. You have to come and bring it every single time that you're leading the group. That essentially is the brand. You're maintaining the brand, the vision, the mission of the group, which ties back into that very first point of why are we showing up? What's the whole point here? What are we trying to accomplish? And am I tracking progress towards that? You as the leader are the keeper of that vision. Now, this is somewhat of a sidebar, but it's timing. Timing has a lot to do with the success of your community. If you run a community and let's say you're doing weekly calls at 5:30 a.m., that might be tough for a lot of people on certain coasts. If you're doing a call, let's say at noon Pacific Standard, but that's 3 p.m. Eastern, people might have a hard time getting to those calls because they're working. You may need to break up the calls into 2 or 3 different times. You really need to think about timing because it's a core component of how much time people have available to participate. Maybe people are more apt to want to join your calls on Saturday mornings where they don't have any work, or maybe they want to join on Sunday afternoons where their schedule is completely open. You kind of have to play around with your timing format to find something that clicks. And the easiest way to get around this is just run surveys and ask your audience, what is the best time that works for you? They will tell you. And then you have to act accordingly. And now this could also go to your geography. If you create a community of people just in, let's say, Los Angeles, it's going to be a lot easier to deal with your timing. If you have an international group, timing's going to be really tough. Now, a pro tip here is to have onboarding calls whenever and however possible, whether paid or free community. This gives you an opportunity to learn who this member is, what their goals are. And if you can't do the discovery call, I would at least have maybe a question or two that members have to answer when they come into your community. What are you looking to gain? What do you hope to provide to the community? What kind of community member do you wish to be? What's your number one challenge? Real basic questions. You can do whatever you want. You can make people fill out a survey, but at the end of the day, you want to know who's coming in, what their problems are so that you can help them solve their problems. It is okay in this arena to over communicate with them as well. Remember, not everyone's going to fill out the survey. Not everyone's going to do the thing. So you constantly have to remind them because your objective is to learn and learn and learn as much as you can about them. Now, when you launch a community, you have a few choices. You can go paid, you can go free. Those are the big choices primarily. And then from there, people usually scale up and sell other programs, other offerings, maybe offshoots of certain communities. You can have a large free community, but then a really small paid community, and then even a smaller high ticket mastermind. There's so many different business models out there. You do need to consider what your business model is and how this thing is going to grow. It's really tough to run a free community indefinitely because you're putting a lot of time, effort, and energy into this thing. And to not be compensated for your time, you need to get compensated in other ways. Now, maybe you're using this community as a value add for you and your business. Maybe you're using it a way to build personal brand or an opportunity to create content on a weekly basis. Maybe you're using this to get new business relationships you wouldn't have otherwise had if you didn't have this community. That's fine, but you really need to think about the value to you as a leader, because at some point when things get slow, you need to look at the value and remember why you did this. So you absolutely need to have some personal goals for the reason by which you're going to do this community. And then obviously track your goals to see if you're making progress. Now, just like anything in the business world, this requires concentrated effort. It requires planning and strategy. It requires marketing, potentially sales, good scheduling, showing up in the right way, making progress, tracking activities, cornering your niche, messaging, communication. It is a business like anything else. Even if it is a paid community, you need to treat it like a real business. It will take a lot from you. There will be a lot of coordination, a lot of emails that go back and forth, a lot of DMs that you have to check and private messages. So I highly recommend before you get into a community that you think about how much time you actually want to dedicate to this community before you get into it, because it's very easy for this thing to turn into 5 to 10 hours a week just in administrative and coordination and marketing. You also need to think about how much you want to spend. If you're running a paid community, you should obviously know your customer acquisition costs, but you're definitely going to need to test various ad channels, maybe using Meta or TikTok ads, YouTube, organic strategies. So it can pull you deep down the rabbit hole of all things marketing, setting up your funnels and your VSLs and your landing pages and all that extra stuff. Do not think that this just kind of happens, because it does not. Now, I was using the SKOOL platform. There was a lot of features that I really liked about it. They give you a landing page. That landing page allows you to post a video, an intro video. You can do various levels of paid or free memberships. You can also post content inside. You can do content that's paid. You can run workshops and programs that are paid or free. You get the community engagement. People have a leaderboard that they can look at and climb up the leaderboard, which adds to engagement, makes it a little more fun and attractive. You can send emails from the platform. It's very cool. I highly recommend it. Amongst most other platforms that I've seen out there, this one has most of what you're going to be looking for. Maybe not everything, but most. For me, I was using it to schedule weekly Zoom calls. So I would have a calendar inside the SKOOL platform with a Zoom link. You just click on that. You can join the call every Tuesday. And then I would post recaps. This leads to another side point, which is knowing what's the most valuable to your community. They will tell you if you ask them. So you might think posting video recaps of the calls is of high value, but the community might think all the courses you have in there are the highest value. And you can go down certain roads thinking this is what the community really values when they might really just value this. So I would constantly run surveys and just ask, hey, are you getting a lot of value out of this? What is the most high value ad that you get from this community? Now, in my community, I saw people hiring each other, creating strategic partnerships, writing books, starting podcasts, launching YouTube pages, creating lifelong friendships. A lot of high value came out of my community. I ran a completely free community. We had 163 members, ran about 45 calls, brought in 10 subject matter expert guest speakers. We ran 6 challenges, from 21 days of content to time blocking exercises. And of course, we had our weekly Tuesday call, which lasts for about an hour, where people could bring in their toughest challenges, connect with the community, and work through tough issues. I decided to bring my community to a close, but more of an evolution, moving from the weekly calls towards more workshops and boot camps and seminars and meetups. That's the evolution of my community. I may come back to communities and start another one. I'm a big fan of them. I would say the highest value add that I got out of it was creating weekly content. It kind of kicked me in the butt to just hit record on the Zoom calls, and I was able to chop everything up into shorts and shorter form content for YouTube. And of course, seeing all the progress from everybody in the community was ultimately the big highlight of doing that. I also benefited because it helped me sharpen my skills, meet new people, create new relationships, and it was great for personal branding. So if you're seriously considering starting a community, I would highly recommend it. I would just make sure that you're well-researched, you know what your community is for, what you're trying to accomplish, who it's for, the type of people that you're bringing in, being the leader that can drive people through and hold them accountable, telling them what to do very specifically, ensure high engagement, making connections amongst the community members, tracking all the progress, getting testimonials, definitely making sure you're getting your community's contact information, following up, doing onboarding calls, creating various formats of calls, maybe short calls in the morning, long calls at night, trying different times, testing things. If you're going to run marketing, try multiple channels, really lock down your customer acquisition costs. Make sure that you're delivering value. Never, ever hold back. That's the final tip, is never hold back any of the value that you can provide to these people. Any call that anyone shows up to, just make sure you're over delivering. Any piece of content that you're creating, whether it's a course or a worksheet, just make sure it is the gold standard, the absolute best that you can create. And if you do all these things and you're highly intentional about it, your community will grow and it will serve as a serious asset for you and your business. So that's it. That's my recap on communities and which platform I chose. As I mentioned, I chose SKOOL. I'll put a link down below if you want to try that platform. If you have questions about this, leave comments below, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks.